Well, you can use the cliche for measuring stick or a litmus test when it comes to the Calgary Flames in 2021-22. You'll know what I mean as it's time for another episode of Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to another episode of my Calgary Flames in 6. We are now in Season 4, Episode number 7, as this is how far we are in the 2021-22 Calgary Flames season in the National Hockey League. We'll talk about games 31 to 36, so we're finally over about 40% of the way in of the season, and I'm going to say this episode, when we're looking at the previous 6 games for the Calgary Flames, definitely we're seeing how we stack up against one of the top teams in the league, especially with many teams that we had on the schedule. And of course, the episodes have been a little slower the last 6 weeks because of games being postponed, but you can see my latest video on when those games will be made up. So videos for game recaps are going to start becoming more often now that things are starting to stabilize with what's been going on the last couple of years with the Calgary Flames. So before I bring in my notes and recap how the last 6 games went, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, just make sure you hit like, subscribe at my other social media links down in the description below. I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel, but I do a variety of non-sports content when I have time, and I touched upon it in my last video where I talked about games being rescheduled that this year in 2022. I do actually have a couple of video series that I have planned that's right now still in its planning stages, so if I do indeed go ahead with those said video series, just make sure to subscribe so you know what they are. I might drop a couple hints. One does actually involve the Calgary Flames, something they did in the past. As well, I'll talk about some certain CFL teams. That's what I plan to do this year. So I'll bring up my notes, and what I had decided to do with both all my game recaps going forward is that I'm trying to make less notes and streamline a little more, because I just don't have time to make a bunch of notes to try to be extra witty in that to bring the stats, and even then you still hiccup here and there. So I have streamlined it a little more. But in this episode, there's 6 games for the Calgary Flames, but there were definitely a lot more games when I do the Stockton Heat quick hits, and there'll be many quick hits when it comes to the Stockton Heat because they had a busy stretch between games being postponed. So let's bring on the first game. So this will go back to game 31. This happened on Tuesday, January the 4th, as the Calgary Flames were on a road trip, as they were taking on the Florida Panthers. So one of the first 3 games in a row that the Calgary Flames were taking on, you could say, one of the top contenders for the Stanley Cup, as this game was at the FLA Live Arena. I guess that's what they call it now, 5 p.m. puck drop instead of BT&T Center. So how did things go? And I guess technically they play in Sunrise, Florida, even though everyone thinks it's Miami. But there were definitely a lot of shots in this game, almost like a lacrosse game. So first, the first goal of the game came to the Florida Panthers just their 6 minutes in, as it was a power play goal by Patrick Hornquist. Yes, Patrick Hornquist now is the Florida Panther. He scored his 5th goal of the season, so Florida take an early 1-0 lead. However, Johnny Gaudreau, he's definitely having a great season for the Calgary Flames. He tied it up just over a minute later, at exactly 7:03, because Patrick Hornquist's first goal, 5th of the season, was at 5:58. Johnny Gaudreau scored his 14th at 7:03, so we had a 1-1 game at that point in the first period. And then Blake Coleman, yes, one of the big signings that we made in the offseason, the former Lightning, he scored his 5th of the season at 10:04. So now Calgary had an early 2-0 lead, looking good so far against the Florida Panthers, one of the top teams in the league. However, 3 minutes later at 13:01, it was Anthony Duclair. These players bounced around in the NHL. He tied it up the game at 2-2 for the Florida Panthers on his 13th of the season. And then on another power play, just approaching the final minutes of the first period, Joe Thornton, yes, he's still around and still playing in the NHL. He scored his 4th of the season at 18:51. So Florida took a 3-2 lead, and that's how things stood after the first period. Florida having a 3-2 lead, so you had a lot of offense to go in the first period. Second period, there was a lot less offense. Still a lot of shots taken on both sides because first period, the Florida Panthers outshot Calgary 16-14, while in the second period, it was 21-16 in shots for the Florida Panthers. However, the only goal of the second period did not come until the 1943 minute mark. So just before the period wrapped up, actually it was former Flame Ryan Lomberg. Remember Ryan Lomberg, a fourth line plugger with long hair? Well, he is with the Florida Panthers now, and he scored his 3rd of the season. So Florida took a 4-2 lead, and that's how things stood after the second period. Florida taking a 4-2 lead. And then going in the third period, the Flames did try to press back. Did get a lot more shots than Florida. It was a 19-8 for Calgary in shots in the third period. However, Florida was able to get a couple more goals. First, it was Patrick Hornquist who got his 2nd of the game. This was at the 5:47 minute mark of the third period. And then it was Lucas Carlson who scored his 2nd of the season for Florida at 13:04. For Florida to take a 6-2 lead, and that's exactly how this one ended, as the Florida Panthers, they convincingly beat the Calgary Flames 6-2 at home. Florida definitely has been very strong at home this season. However, they've been iffy on the road. So ultimately, after Calgary had a fairly easy time against the Chicago Blackhawks the game before, they got schooled against the Florida Panthers. Ultimately, when it comes to shots in this game, the Calgary Flames, they actually outshot the Florida Panthers. It was 49-45, so there were definitely a lot of chances going either way. No one had a multi-point game for the Calgary Flames. So Jacob Markstrom, he had a fairly rough game. He started his career, actually, with the Florida Panthers. Then he got to the Vancouver Canucks in the Roberto Luongo trade back in 2014. He made 39 saves for the Calgary Flames. Well, the Florida Panthers, well, other than Patrick Hornquist getting the 2 goals, you had Carl Vergay, who had 2 assists. You had Brandon Montour, who had 3 assists for the Florida Panthers. So those are the multi-point games, as well as the Patrick Hornquist with 2 goals. And then it was Sergei Bobrovsky. He definitely was the difference in that for the Florida Panthers. He made 47 saves for the Florida Panthers. So things definitely did not start off well for the Calgary Flames, as they lost convincingly to the Florida Panthers 6-2. So now we'll go to Game 32. This happened on Thursday, January the 6th, as the Calgary Flames were still in Florida. This time taking on, I was going to call it, the dreaded Tampa Bay Lightning. For June 2004 reasons, this game was at the Amalie Arena. That was a 5 p.m. puck drop. Now, what was interesting in this game is not only we were taking out 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. Not too sure if there was any injury with Jacob Markstrom, or maybe this was the plan, or give Dan Vladar some time, but Dan Vladar actually started in net. And also the other thing to note in this game is it was Nikita Kucherov who returned to the lineup. So that added the extra challenge for the Calgary Flames. First period, there actually was no scoring. However, I felt the Tampa Bay Lightning definitely were the much better team. Looked like the team that has won the Cup the last couple of years. And also, Blake Coleman also was able to get his Stanley Cup ring, as he was on the Tampa Bay Lightning before he signed the Calgary Flames. You actually saw on Calgary Flames TV that he was seeing the team before the game. But Tampa Bay had a couple posts in the first period, so there was no scoring after the first period, but Tampa Bay definitely outplayed the Calgary Flames, outshooting them 14-8. And then the dominance still definitely continues. However, we should note that in the first period, there were definitely some rough stuff, as Matthew Joseph for the Tampa Bay Lightning fought with Noah Hannafin, and actually Matthew Joseph also got the instigator, so there was definitely some rough stuff in the first period. We should highlight this at the 10:08 minute mark, so no scoring but some fisticuffs, so maybe they know the history with the Flames and the Lightning. So going into the second period, as Tampa Bay continued to press on, they did score the first goal of the game, not until the 12:21 minute mark, as it was Corey Perry who scored his 10th of the season for Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay had a 1-0 lead. And actually, that's how things stood after the first period. Second period, I should say, Tampa Bay having a 2-1 lead. Definitely was another rough stuff, as Brad Richardson for Calgary and Boris Katnowicz, who also got shot with fighting as well after the Corey Perry goal. So there definitely were a couple more fights in this game, as I would say. It was very interesting that we had a lot of rough stuff, so at least that was entertaining in that end. So going into the third period, I still say the Tampa Bay Lightning overall was the better team, and actually Tampa Bay took an early 2-0 lead in the third period. It was Braden Point. He got his 12th of the season. I believe Braden Point actually is a local player born in Calgary. He got his 12th of the season to make it 2-0. And then going into midway the third period, this definitely sunk the ship for the Calgary Flames, as there were two quick goals for the Tampa Bay Lightning. First was Andre Palat, who got his 13th of the season at the 10:10 mark to make it 3-0. And then after the goal celebration, then on the next face-off, was Alex Killorn, who also blasted another point. So he made it 4-0 on his 11th of the season. So definitely was not looking like Florida was going to be kind to the Calgary Flames. But before the Flames actually broke the shutout, there was yet another fight in this one. Actually, Johnny Gaudreau and Steven Stamkos definitely were involved in a roughing play, but there was another fight. This time it was Patrick Moon and Eric Branson who was a fight. Actually, that happened after the goal. It was after the goal that Dylan Dubé scored for Calgary at the 15:54 minute mark of the third period of his 4th of the season, to at least make it 4-1, but that was as close as the Calgary Flames would get, as the Tampa Bay Lightning definitely once again flexed their muscle against the Calgary Flames. This one was definitely what's expected, as with a 4-1 victory. So when it comes to no one had a multi-point game for the Calgary Flames, only one goal. As I mentioned, it was Dan Vladar who started in net for Calgary. He had 29 saves in this one, while for the Tampa Bay Lightning, well, Ryan McDonough had 2 assists, and Nikita Kucherov, who turned the lineup, he picked up 2 assists in this one. And it was Andrei Vasilevsky who was in net for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He made 26 saves. So Calgary came out empty-handed in Florida with a combined 10-3 loss with the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. So that game definitely isn't going to make me hate the Tampa Bay Lightning just a little less, I would say. So that was game 32. So game 33, this happened the next night on Friday, January the 7th, as the Calgary Flames were wrapping up their road trip. This time taking on the Carolina Hurricanes at the PNC Arena. That was a 5 p.m. puck drop, and once again, it was Dan Vladar who was in net for the Calgary Flames, as he got in for both back-to-back games. And this one, things did start off a little better for the Calgary Flames, as the first goal of the game came on Blake Coleman, his 6th of the season, at the 5:12 minute mark. So Calgary had an early 1-0 lead against the Carolina Hurricanes in this one. However, later in the first period, it was Jesper Fast who tied it up for the Carolina Hurricanes on his 8th of the season. This was at the 17:50 minute mark to make it 1-1, and that's exactly how things stood after the first period, as the Carolina Hurricanes and the Calgary Flames had a 1-1 tie after the first period. However, the Calgary Flames, they definitely had a better jump in play in the first period, as they outshot the Carolina Hurricanes 21-10, so it wasn't for a lack of effort. However, the Carolina Hurricanes definitely were able to turn the tables on this one, as in the second period they outshot the Calgary Flames 18-7, and they were also able to pick up a few more goals and pretty much make this one out of reach for Calgary once again, as it was Derek Steffen who scored the First goal in the second period for the Carolina Hurricanes, his fourth of the season at S04E to make it 2-1 for Carolina. And then there was Andrei Sneskov, who always seems to get a goal against the Calgary Flames. He scored his 11th of the season at 9:22. So Carolina now took a 3-1 lead at that point. And then controversial player Tony DeLangelo, who actually has been fitting in well with the Carolina Hurricanes. He scored his 6th of the season at the 12:35 minute mark. So now Carolina has a 4-1 lead. However, a minute later, Matthew Tkachuk did provide some hope as he scored his 15th of the season just before the 13.5 minute mark to make it 4-2 for Carolina. And that's how things stood after the second period, as Carolina had a 4-2 lead. And then going into the third period, I'm going to say the Calgary Flames did look to press back, at least were in this game, and actually got really close to this one as Johnny Gaudreau. As Gaudreau definitely is proving that he is playing well under a full season under Daryl Sutter in his contract year. Well, he scored his 15th goal of the season just before the 9-minute mark. So now it was 4-3 for Carolina at this point. So we're thinking maybe the Calgary Flames will be able to fight their way back from being down 4-1. However, it was late in the period that all that got dashed away, as it was Brady Shea who scored at 18:08 of the third period to make it 5-3 for Carolina. It wasn't an empty netter. And then Andrei Sneskov got his 2nd of the season on a power play at 19:05 to make it 6-3. So ultimately, that 3-game stretch where you bring out the measuring stick and the litmus test proves that I don't think the Calgary Flames are good enough to take on the top contenders in the league right now, as they lost this one 6-3. Ultimately, when it comes to shots and goal, it was 39-37 for Calgary, but Calgary did not win in Carolina. So when it comes to who stood up for the Calgary Flames in the multi-point games, well, both Matthew Tkachuk and Blake Coleman each had a goal and assist for 2 points each. And then Dan Vladar, as I mentioned, he did start in net for this one in back-to-back games. He made 31 saves for Calgary. So on the Carolina Hurricanes side of the puck, well, it was Andrei Sneskov who got the 2 goals. And then it was Brady Shea who had a goal and 2 assists, as well as Scott Lawrence. I think his name's Scott Lawrence, for the Steven Lawrence, I meant to say. He got 2 assists for the Carolina Hurricanes. And then it was Freddie Anderson, Ferg Anderson for Carolina, who was in net, who made 36 saves. So Calgary definitely had an easy time picking up a win against the Seattle Kraken. And then they had that game postponed, and then they won in Chicago, but those 2 teams are way below them in the standings. However, they had trouble against the Florida Panthers, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Carolina Hurricanes to wrap up this road trip. So that was game number 33. So game 34, after one game being postponed, the next game that the Calgary Flames played was on Thursday, January 13th, as the Calgary Flames went back home to take on the Ottawa Senators. This was a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Stadium. As long as we have Matt and they have Brady, it's the Battle of the Kachucks. And I would say for this one, considering where Ottawa is in the standings and where Calgary should be, and they are in the standings as a playoff team, I was very disappointed, and so was Daryl Sutter. Very disappointed in this effort in this game, as I felt that the Calgary Flames looked very flat in this one, and it definitely showed, as the Ottawa Senators scored the first 2 goals in the first period, both by Nick Paul, as Nick Paul scored his 5th of the season a minute 43 in to make it 1-0 for Ottawa, and he also scored again at 16:37. So Ottawa took a 2-0 lead after the first period, and when it comes to shots in the goal, Ottawa also had the slightly outshot the Calgary Flames 13-10. So that was it for the first period, as Ottawa took a 2-0 lead. Going into the second period. Now going into the second period, early in the second period, an attempt to rejuvenate, bring some energy for the Calgary Flames. Well, at the minute 47 minute mark, he has Scott Sabrin for Ottawa. Had a fight with Milan Lucic, but that didn't seem to help things, as Ottawa still continued their dominant play against the Calgary Flames. And actually, it wasn't until late in the second period, Ottawa added to their third got third to the lead to make it 3-0, as it was Drake Batherson who scored his 10th of the season. That did not come until 1903 in the second period, so in the final minute. So Ottawa took a 3-0 lead. After the second period, this feeling a lot like last year, where the Calgary Flames struggled against the Ottawa Senators last year when we had the North All-Canadian division. But now going into the third period, well, Calgary started off quickly, as it was Matthew Tkachuk who got his 16th of the season, 47 seconds into the period. So now it's 3-1 for Ottawa at that point. However, Connor Brown definitely gained the 3-goal lead for the Ottawa Senators as he scored his 5th of the season at 4:52, and ultimately it was the Ottawa Senators that defeated the Calgary Flames 4-1 in this one. And I just felt, like I said, the Calgary Flames, they looked a little flat and uninspired in this game after taking on one of the top 2-3 teams of the league right away in the road trip. So, as I say, Ottawa wins this one 4-1, and it was Jacob Markstrom who was back in net for Calgary, who made 30 saves. No one stood out with a multi-point game, with obviously one goal. It was Matthew Tkachuk that scored. Brady Tkachuk also had an assist in this one, so both Tkachuks got a point in this one. And it was Formerson who had 2 assists for the Ottawa Senators, and it was Nick Paul who had the 2 goals, as well as Connor Brown with the goal and assist. So those are the multi-point getters for the Ottawa Senators, and it was Matt Murray who was in net for the Ottawa Senators. He made 27 saves. So Calgary's working on a 4-game losing streak at this stage of the episode, and things are not going to get any easier, as the Calgary Flames had a lot more time to think about that game because they had another game that got postponed. So that was game 34. So game 35 does not happen until Tuesday, January the 18th, as now the Calgary Flames were hosting the Florida Panthers. This was at the Scotiabank Saddledome, 7 p.m. puck drop. And also to mention in this one, Sam Bennett. This was the first time he got to play against the Calgary Flames. I forgot to mention, when Calgary was in Florida, Sam Bennett was suspended. So Sam Bennett did not get to play in this game. But he did for the Florida Panthers since we traded him at the trade deadline. And I'm going to say, after those 3 games that we lost to Florida, Tampa, and Carolina, and sad effort that we put in against the Ottawa Senators, I think the Calgary Flames responded big time in this game. And also the fact that I mentioned that the Florida Panthers, I meant to say, they have a so-so record on the road despite being so good at home. So the first goal of the game went to Calgary, as there was Rasmus Andersson who scored on the power play, his first of the season at 4:36. So Calgary took an early 1-0 lead. And then it was Blake Coleman who suddenly has picked up a few goals in January. He scored his 7th of the season at 11:36. I guess he's still familiar with the Florida teams after his time with the Tampa Bay Lightning and also playing with the New Jersey Devils before in his career. Made it 2-0 at 11:36, so Calgary actually had a 2-0 lead against the Florida Panthers with 2 goals in the first period. Mentioned there was not too many rough stuff. There was a fight. There was an unsportsmanlike conduct between Jonathan Huberdeau and Matthew Tkachuk at the late in the first period, but no fighting. So ultimately, Calgary had a 2-0 lead going into the second period, and I felt they had a much better effort so far in this episode. And when I recap the games, so now going into the second period, well, funny I mentioned Sam Bennett making his return to the Saddledome, the first time playing against the Calgary Flames. Well, of course, Sam Bennett has to score in this one for the Florida Panthers. It was his 16th of the season at 12:36 in the second period to make it 2-1 for Calgary at that point. However, Sean Monahan, who has definitely struggled this season, has been buried on the 4th line at times. He definitely had a big game as he scored on a power play his 5th of the season at the 16:03 minute mark. So Calgary had a 3-1 lead at that point, and that's how things stood after the second period. Calgary up 3-1 against the Florida Panthers at home. I should also mention that the Calgary Flames, like the Florida Panthers, so-so on the road. Calgary Flames were so-so at home so far this year. So something's got to give in this matchup, right? Well, things continue to look good for the Calgary Flames as going into the third period. It was Matthew Tkachuk who scored his 17th of the season at 3:47. So Calgary now took a 4-1 lead. And then Sean Monahan, 3 minutes later, at the 6:43 minute mark, got his second of the game to make it 5-1, and ultimately the Calgary Flames, they redeemed themselves from the Ottawa game and against the Florida Panthers earlier in the month as they defeated the Florida Panthers 5-1 at home. And Calgary also outshot the Florida Panthers 30-29 in this one, so they had a slight edge in shots. Definitely a few players had multi-point games. Well, Johnny Gaudreau, he had 4 assists in this game for 4 points. Matthew Tkachuk had a goal and 2 assists for 3 points, and then Sean Monahan with the 2 goals. So our key players definitely were the offensive contributors in this one. And Jacob Markstrom, he bounced back. Not too sure if he was still feeling ill effects from the outbreak or had an injury. Well, he looked strong in this game as he made 28 saves for Calgary. And then I mentioned Sam Bennett was the only goal scorer for the Florida Panthers, and it was Stephen Knight who was in net for the or Spencer Knight, who was in net for the Florida Panthers in this one. He made 26 saves, so Calgary did not face Sergei Bobrovsky in this one, so at least you got a win in this episode against the Florida Panthers for Game 35. So Game 36, the last game in this episode before we move on to other business. This happened on Saturday, January the 22nd, as the Calgary Flames weren't back on the road, but just up the QE2 to take on the Edmonton Oilers at Rogers Place, 8 p.m. puck drop. And this game always lives up to this billing for the Battle of Alberta, as you've been hearing a lot lately about the Edmonton Oilers being down and out and certain players fighting back in the media, because Edmonton has not been doing too much winning lately, which I'm not going to feel too sad about it. However, you can throw this all out the window when it comes to the Battle of Alberta. However, things did look good early for the Calgary Flames as they were looking to continue to add on to the Oilers' misery, as it was Matthew Tkachuk who scored his 18th of the season. First goal of the game for Calgary at 8:29 to make it 1-0 for Calgary at that point. And then Milan Lucic got a power play goal in the final minute for the Calgary Flames, the former Oiler, his 9th of the season at 19:19. So after the first period, Calgary had a 2-0 lead going into the second period. However, the Edmonton Oilers definitely came back in the second period, as they definitely took advantage of some penalties, and I read why we're reading some controversial calls. Well, Evan Bouchard definitely was determined to get the Oilers back on the right foot, as Evan Bouchard, who scored the next 2 goals in this one. First on the power play at 5:35, his 7th of the season, and then another one on the power play at 9:41, so Evan Bouchard got his 7th and 8th of the season. So just before the halfway mark of the second period, the game is now tied at 2-2. And then the Edmonton Oilers were able to get a lead late in the second period, as it was Brendan Perlini who got his 4th of the season at 18:18 to make it 3-2 for Edmonton. However, just under a minute later, in the final minute for the Calgary Flames, it was Noah Hanifin who scored his 4th of the season at 19:16 of the second period to tie up the game at 3-3. So we had a 3-3 game going into the third period. And in the third period, it was a tight back and forth matchup. The Calgary Flames, I'm going to say, had the edge in play, outplayed the Edmonton Oilers. However, Leon Draisaitl, he definitely carried the Oilers on his back in this one in the third period, as he scored the go-ahead goal for the Edmonton Oilers at the 14:29 minute mark to make it 4-3 for Edmonton, his 27th of the season. And then he scored an empty netter with literally 1 second left in the game to make it 5-3 on his 20th of the season. So ultimately, it was the Edmonton Oilers who got the better of the Calgary Flames with a 5-3 victory, as so far both times that the Flames and Oilers have played were up in Edmonton, and actually was the Edmonton Oilers who won the game 5-3 both times. If you remember the opening game of the year, Connor McDavid had a hat-trick. Well, in this one, it was the Leon Draisaitl show, as he definitely was in the media the last couple of days, snapping back at a media reporter asking how he was feeling, basically, which I don't blame him, all things considered, as a hockey fan. However, ultimately, the Calgary Flames did outshoot the Edmonton Oilers 47-31, so the goaltending that's definitely been a sore spot for the Edmonton Oilers lately definitely stood up in this one. So basically, you throw everything away when it comes to the Battle of Alberta. Kind of like Labor Day in the CFL, no matter where the Stamps and Elks are in the standings. When it's Labor Day, you can throw it out the window. So the only players that had multi-point games for the Calgary Flames, Matthew Tkachuk had a goal and assist for 2 points, and Noah Hannafin, he had a goal and 2 assists for 3 points. And then it was Jacob Markstrom who made 26 saves for the Calgary Flames. While the Edmonton Oilers, well, Leon Draisaitl definitely a little bit away in this one. He had 2 goals and 2 assists for 4 points. So happy if you have your Pooley. Evan Bouchard had 2 assists or goals. And it was Connor McDavid who had 2 assists. So we had 6 points still between McDavid and Draisaitl in this one. So basically the Edmonton Oilers, if they get good goaltending, if McDavid and Draisaitl get points, that's basically all the Edmonton Oilers. So if you can stop those two and their goaltending's iffy, I still think the Oilers are fragile. However, it was Mikko Koskinen who made 44 saves for the Edmonton Oilers. He definitely stood out against Jacob Markstrom in this one. So those were the 6 games for the Calgary Flames. So now, where do the Calgary Flames stand? Well, after 36 games, they are 18-12-6 for 42 points. So now if we move on to stats and standings when it comes to the Calgary Flames. So at this point of the season, we still have 2 players tied for goals for the Calgary Flames at 18, which is Matthew Tkachuk and Andrew Mangiapane. Each have 18 goals at this point of the season. Johnny Gaudreau is 3rd with 15. Elias Lindholm is 4th with 12. And Maine Lucic rounds out the top 5 with 9 goals. Leading team assist is Johnny Gaudreau with 29. Matthew Tkachuk and Elias Lindholm tied for 2nd with 19. Rasmus Andersson 4th with 17. And Oliver Kylington 5th in assists with 15 points. So the leading point getter right now for the Calgary Flames is actually Johnny Gaudreau with 44 points. Matthew Tkachuk 37 points. So 2 players that are over a point a game based. Elias Lindholm at 31 points. Andrew Mangiapane 4th with 22. And Oliver Kylington rounds at the top 5 in 5th with 19. So if you look around the league, the NHL, for the league leaders, well, when it comes to points, well, right now you got a tie with Alexander Ovechkin and Leon Draisaitl with 58 points. Connor McDavid and Jonathan Huberdeau are tied for 3rd with 55 points, and Nazem Kadri for Colorado has 51 points, rounding out the top 5. So when it comes to goals, who's leading the way for the Rocket Richard? Right now, Alexander Ovechkin and Chris Kreider would share that award, as they have 29 goals each to tie it. But Leon Draisaitl is just behind with 28 goals. Austin Matthews for Toronto has 25 goals. Top 5 is Alex DeBrincat for Chicago with 24. So leading assist in the NHL right now is Jonathan Huberdeau with 40 for Florida. And then in 2nd place is Adam Fox. You still suck, by the way, with 38. And then Connor McDavid and Nazem Kadri are tied for 3rd with 36 assists. And Victor Hedman rounds to the top 5 with 35. So that's the leading assist leader. So if we go back to the Calgary Flames and looking at their goaltending story, well, Jacob Markstrom, at this stage of the season, he has a 13-9-5 record with 225 goals against average and a 924 save percentage with the 5 shutouts. And then Dan Vidar, after 9 games, he has 5 wins, 3 losses, and an overtime loss with a 273 goals against average and 910 save percentage. I mean, those values weren't going to be ridiculously low all season, but I'm still pretty happy with it comes to the goaltending. So now if you just look at the team stats, well, the Edmonton Oilers still lead the way with power play at 30.5%, and the Calgary Flames are 11th at 23.1%. I guess when you have Draisaitl and McDavid on power play, it's going to be lethal. So the best penalty kill in the league right now still goes to the Pittsburgh Penguins at 90%. Calgary Flames are 7th at 83.2%, so our special teams are still pretty good if you ask me. And then when it comes to shots against per game, Carolina leads the way at 28, while the Calgary Flames are 8th at 30th. So our defense is still looking pretty good at this point. So that is the quick stats there. Now if you look at the standings, this is where things are still going to be a little murky and interesting right now because the game's being postponed, but I'll just throw up points and games played. So starting off with the division and the Western Conference. So the Vegas Golden Knights lead the Pacific Division. They have 50 points in 41 games. And the Anaheim Ducks, they have 47 points in 43 games for 2nd. And then the Los Angeles Kings, they have 45 points in 41 games for 3rd. And then the San Jose Sharks are 4th in the Pacific. They have 44 points in 42 games. The The Flames are 5th, but they play 42 points in only 36 games. Then the Edmonton Oilers are 6th with 40 points in 37 games. And then 7th place is the Vancouver Canucks. They have 40 points in 40 games. And then the Seattle Kraken are last in the Pacific with 28 points in 40 games. So if you still look at the points percentage, actually the Calgary Flames would still be 2nd in the Pacific Division right now. If you look at points percentage, if that gets to be used. But with the games being all rescheduled, the NHL still committed to get 82 games in. But I still think the Pacific Division is the weakest division at this stage. So now if you look at the Central Division, Colorado is leading the way. They have 59 points in 39 games. Nashville's in 2nd, 55 points in 43 games. St. Louis is 3rd at 53 points in 40 games. So Central Division still looks stronger. And then the Minnesota Wild. They have 51 points, but they've only played 37 games for 4th. Dallas Stars, they have 42 points in 38 games. Then the Winnipeg Jets, they have 40 points, but in 37 games. Chicago Blackhawks, they have 37 points in 41 games. And then the Arizona Coyotes, they have 24 points in 40 games. So that's how the Central looks. And in the West, now the Eastern Conference, basically, if you look at the Eastern Conference, I'm going to say the playoff spots, the top 8 in the Eastern Conference at this stage are probably going to be the top 8 now. Because there is separation between the good and the bad, I would say. So looking at the Atlantic Division, Florida leads the way. They have 61 points in 41 games. Tampa Bay has 61 points in 43 games. Toronto's the top 3 with 53 points in 38 games. So Toronto's still looking pretty good at this stage. And then the Boston Bruins, they have 50 points in 38 games. And then Detroit's the 5th. They have 42 points in 42 games. Buffalo has 33 points in 41 games. So this is where the fall off happens in the Atlantic. And then 7th, Ottawa has 25 points in 34 games. And then the Montreal Canadiens, they had 23 points in 40 games. So after Detroit, it really falls off in the Atlantic. Metropolitan, you're definitely going to see a drop off as well after 4th place. So first in the Metropolitan is the New York Rangers. They have 58 points in 42 games. Then the Carolina Hurricanes, they have 56 points but in 38 games. Pittsburgh Penguins 3rd, 55 points in 40 games. 4th place is the Washington Capitals. They have 55 points in 42 games. And then this steep drop-off afterwards. As in Columbus Blue Jackets, they have 37 points in 38 games. Then the New Jersey Devils have 35 points in 39 games. New York Islanders, they have only played 34 games, so they have 34 points. And then the Philadelphia Flyers, they have 34 points in 41 games. So the East, I think definitely right now, the top 8 in the East is going to likely be the top 8 because there's separation between the top 8 and the bottom 8. The Western Conference is still wide open, and I'm going to definitely say the Pacific Division is still up for grabs, but I do feel Vegas is the best team, and I still think eventually the Calgary Flames and Edmonton Oilers will have enough to be in the top 3, but that is what it is at this stage, but things are still out of whack because of all the postponements and that. So now, let's move on to the Stockton Heat quick hits. So let's bring that out. So yeah, the Stockton Heat, they were very busy in the last few weeks as they covered a lot of games. And even then they still had one game postponed. So the Stockton Heat, the first game to recap in this episode. Game 27, this was on Thursday, January 4th, as they were taking on the Tucson Roadrunners in Tucson at the Tucson Convention Center Arena at 6:30 puck drop. This is the Arizona Coyotes farm team. Tucson won that one 2-1. Justin Kirkland had the only goal for Stockton. Glenn Godwin had a fight with Ben McCartney, and Itu Taloa had his 100th AHL game. Dustin Wolf made 22 saves, so that was game 27. Game 28 on Wednesday, January 5th, the Stockton Heat were taking on the Tucson Roadrunners again, but this time the Tucson Roadrunners, or Stockton Heat, won this one 5-2. Once again, Tucson, 6-3 puck drop. It was Glenn Godwin who had a goal and assist, and that one goal was a penalty shot goal. Greg Morrow, Matthew Phillips, Justin Kirkland, and Itu Taloa each had a goal and assist. Or each had a goal, I was meant to say. Walker Dewar had 2 assists in this one. And it was Adam Werner, the backup, who made 24 saves for Stockton. So that was game 28. And then game 29, Friday, January 7th, the Stockton Heat were taking on the San Diego Gulls. These are the Anaheim Ducks farm team. at the Pachanga Arena, 8 p.m. puck drop. Well, San Diego won this one 4-1. Icha Taloa was the only goal scorer for Stockton, and Adam Werder made 29 saves. And then Game 30, this happened on Sunday, January 9th. The Stockton Heat were now on the road against the Ontario Reign. The Ontario Reign being the Los Angeles Kings farm team. And the Stockton Heat won that one 5-4, and I understand they came back in this one. This was at the Tadio Arena, 4 p.m. puck drop. Matthew Phillips had a goal and 2 assists. Connor Mackey had a goal and assist, which was the overtime winner that he got the goal. Martin Bospel, Icha Taloa, and Walker Deary each had a goal. Dustin Wolf was back in net with 23 saves. And then Game 31, this happened on Wednesday, January 12th. As I said, Stockton was busy during the stretch, as now the Stockton Heat were taking on the Henderson Silver Knights on the road at the Orleans Arena. Henderson Silver Knights being the Vegas Golden Knights farm team. Well, it was Henderson who won this one 5-2. Justin Kirkland had a goal and assist, and Matthew Phillips had the other goal. And Dustin Wolf made 23 saves. Game 32, this happened on Saturday, January the 15th, as the Stockton Heat were actually back at home, taking on the Tucson Roadrunners. Stockton Arena, 8 p.m. puck drop. Well, Stockton won this one 4-1, as Glenn Godwin had 2 goals. Matthew Phillips had a goal and assist, and Ryan Olsen had a goal. Adam Werder made 29 saves. So Game 33, this happened on Wednesday, January the 19th. The Stockton Heat were hosting the San Diego Gulls, 7 p.m. puck drop at Stockton. However, San Diego won this one 3-2. Justin Kirkland had both goals for Stockton, and Adam Werder made 28 saves for Stockton. Game 34, this happened on Friday, January the 27th, as the Stockton Heat were hosting the Henderson Silver Knights, as the Stockton Heat won that one 3-1. 8 p.m. puck drop at Stockton Arena. Byron Freese had 2 goals. Jacob Pelche had a goal. Matthew Phillips and Glenn Godwin each had 2 assists, and Dustin Wolf made 28 saves. And then the last game, the Stockton Heat played, as I captured all the Calgary Flames games, Game 35. Saturday, January 22nd, the Stockton Heat were taking on the Henderson Silver Knights again. By this time, it was Henderson who won this one 4-3 in overtime. This was a 7 p.m. puck drop. Stockton Arena, Byron Freese, Justin Kirkland, Martin Pospisil each had a goal. Also want to highlight in this one that Connor Mackey, he had 2 assists, but he had 17 penalty minutes in the game misconduct, as Connor Mackey and Martin Pospisil each had a fight in this game. And Dustin Wolf made 26 saves. The game that got postponed was on Friday, January the 14th, as the Stockton Heat were going to take on the Bakersfield Condors on the road at the Mechanics Bank Arena, 8 p.m. puck drop, but that's postponed, and Bakersfield is the Edmonton Oilers farm team. So after all that, the Stockton Heat are still looking pretty good in the American Hockey League, as after 35 games, as they have 23 wins, 7 losses, 3 overtime losses, and a shootout loss for 50 points for first in the AHL Pacific. Top 5 point getters for Stockton. Jacob Pelche has 33 points in 33 games with 12 goals and 21 assists. Matthew Phillips, after 31 games, he has 13 goals, 19 assists for 32 points. Glenn Godwin is third after 32 games. 12 goals, 19 assists for 31 points. Fourth in scoring is Connor Mackey for a defenseman, 34 games, 4 goals, 16 assists for 20 points. And then Byron Freese, after 22 games, he has 10 goals, 9 assists for 19 points. So now when it comes to the goaltending, I still think goaltending is pretty good in Stockton as well. Dustin Wolf, after 22 games, he has 17 wins, 2 losses, and 3 overtime losses, with a .210 goals against average and a .930 save percentage. And Adam Werder, after 11 games, he has 6 wins, 4 losses, 1 overtime, and 1 shield loss, with .291 goals against average and an .892 save percentage. So, wasn't really a quick hits for the Stockton Heat, but they were very, very busy in this stretch. So now let's take a look ahead to the next episode, the next 6 games for the Calgary Flames. And the Stockton Heat will be quick hits in the next episode, as they actually only have 1 game. So after that busy stretch, I guess the Stockton Heat are going to take it a little easy. Not too sure if there's an all-star break in the American Hockey League. So the next 6 games for the Calgary Flames, these are all still originally on the schedule, on the original schedule that came out. It's February where all those games are going to get made up from the postponements, which I made that video recently. So Game 37, this will be on Monday, January the 24th. The Calgary Flames will be back at home to take on the St. Louis Blues. That'll be a 7 p.m. puck drop at Scotiabank Saddledome. Then on Wednesday, January 26th, the Calgary Flames will be going on the road as they'll be taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Wednesday, January 26th, I mentioned, Nationwide Arena, 5 p.m. puck drop. And then Game 39, well, the Calgary Flames are going to know the St. Louis Blues pretty well because they play them again on Thursday, January 27th, this time in St. Louis at the Enterprise Arena Center, 6 p.m. puck drop. And then on Game 40, the Calgary Flames come back home to take on the Vancouver Canucks on Saturday, January 29th, 8 p.m. puck drop, Hockey Night Canada, Scotiabank Saddledome, and then they go on the road, Game 41. On Tuesday, February the 1st, the Calgary Flames will be going to Dallas at the American Airlines Center, 6 p.m. puck drop. And then on Game 42, which will be the end for next episode, on Wednesday, February 2nd, the Calgary Flames will be going to Arizona to take on the Arizona Coyotes at the Gila River Arena, 7:30 puck drop. So let's see, Calgary's at home against St. Louis. Then they go on the road to take on Columbus and St. Louis. Then they come back home to take on Vancouver, and then they go on the road to take Dallas and Arizona. So they're going to be racking up some miles in the next week and a half here. And then the only game, the Stockton Heat, half of their 36th game of the game season, will be on Saturday, January 29th, as the Stockton Heat will be hosting the Ontario Reign 7 p.m. puck drop. So there will be less Stockton Heat content in the next episode. So they definitely were busy this one. Calgary Flames, well, I think things are stabilizing when it comes to what happened last month. But they still, I'm going to say from this episode, I feel that they're not there to compete with the big contenders yet. But I think if they can figure out their ways at home, especially in February and March, I still expect this team to be in the playoffs when the time comes. So anyway, that's all I have for my Calgary Flames in 6. So as I close out, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey, home the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders. I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my channel where we recap games and stories and all that. But I also do a variety of non-sports content like personal vlogs, attempt to comedy, and I also do share my experience on the road or at a sporting event. And I've done some vlogging to go, which Chinook Blast will be coming in February, so I plan to do some Chinook Blast vlogging to go like I did last year, taking that in. And of course, I have those planned video series in mind that I want to do later this year. One involving the Calgary Flames, what they've done in the past, and another on certain CFL teams. So if that all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, you know what you do, just make sure you hit like and subscribe. I also have my other social links down in the description below, and I do have my second channel in Brett Hornby Shorts where I put my short form content there. For example, I do a quick recap on what happened in each Calgary Flames game, so I appreciate like and subscribe both here on my main channel as well as my second channel. So I just want to say, go Flames go, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.